Who are the travelers? Who are the extraterrestrial beings that oversee our world while we are evolving as a human consciousness? Meet the travelers today with the wonderful Rowan Bo. She's had some incredible experiences with her galactic family, and we're going to find out all about that today.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day, and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. Awakening and expanding consciousness. So great to be with you all again. And as you know, we are on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM syndicated radio all over the place, contacting about 120 countries and streaming on 8 platforms. And I'm just looking at Facebook. One of the Facebook pages hasn't worked again. Oh, well, you get that. And I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful Rowan Bo. Welcome to the show, Rowan.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Karen. Lovely to talk to you.
Rowan and I were yakking and I totally missed the time. And she said, what happens when we go live? And I said, oh, my God, we're going to go live now. We were yakking away. But I met Rowan through Kevin Briggs, who I've had on the show many times for those people who listen and watch the shows regularly. Kevin is a contactee. He's one of the most amazing people I've ever met, seriously. And it's funny because Rowan is Australian and I'm Australian, and Kevin is actually an Englishman who retired and went to live in Florida. So he's an Englishman living in the US, and reached out to Rowan and introduced him to me. I mean, I love that we have this global community. It's so great that, we're speaking to people from all around the world, because Rowan reached out to me to be a speaker at the upcoming Cardwell UFO Conference, which is happening on the 8th to the 10th of August in Cardwell, Queensland. And for people that listened last week, I had Thea on the show and we spoke all about it. So if you want to know all about it, it's been going for 11 years. It's a well-established UFO conference, I suppose. And even Ross Coulthard said he's going to Zoom in, and he's a busy man, and speak to the mob up there. And Rowan, you're a speaker as well.
Yes, I was a speaker 2 years ago. Last year, the conference wasn't on. I think they must have had floods and other things going on up there, being in tropical Queensland. Yeah. But that was my first time at the festival 2 years ago, and my life's never looked back. It's been really good.
So is that when you met your partner 2 years ago?
Yes.
Like everything changed, isn't it? Like
everything changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been focusing on my experiences and how I can help people, and since just focusing on what is actually that's just my life's journey, instead of ignoring it and pretending things didn't happen because of stigma and whatnot. My life's just opened up into so many excellent, like you say, meeting excellent friends and just having really great conversations with people who are like-minded.
Oh, here's Thea. Thea says, good morning. Good morning,
hi,
Thea. And Shirley's here. This looks like fun. Always, darling, always. Yes, Kevin Briggs. Kevin is one of my favourite. Hello from Toronto, Canada. Yeah. So, well, Kevin is from the UK, moved to America. We're in Australia, and Shirley's in Canada. I love it. We are we're not just a global community. We are a universal cosmic community, aren't we? We're going to talk about some of your friends who travel across the cosmos. But let me just ask you about your experience, apart from meeting your partner, of the conference. What went on there? What were you expecting, and what did you meet when you went to the UFO festival?
Well, I really wanted to go, and I thought, how am I going to make this happen? And I was like, what if I just ring Thea up and just see if she needs anybody else in there? And I think it was 1 week before the Cardwell Festival, and I'm like, do you need anybody else? Can I come? So I was like, brilliant excuse to go there. And I met some really lovely people. Ben Hurl, he's in Victoria. Peter Curry, these are famous people, I felt. And it was amazing to connect with people with same stories. And obviously I met my partner, Alex, there by accident. Nothing planned there. So he actually went with a couple of other people 2 weeks before he planned to go, by complete accident again, following our instincts. So
I love it.
We became best friends before anything, occurred in a relationship sort of way.
Well, it's beautiful because I was speaking. We're going to hear Rowan's story, but I was chatting to Rowan, as you do, gals, talking about relationships, and you said that you'd had a bad time in one of them, and had put out to the universe to have a partner that was more understanding of who you are and why you're here and what you've experienced, and you found it. I love that. Yeah. So happy endings.
Yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit because we're going to talk about Rowan's experiences. So Australian-born Rowan Bo has been an extraterrestrial contactee since she was 8 years old, having continuous unearthly experiences with at least 3 different species of non-earthly beings who've tracked her around the world even when she was traveling. Now, a disclosure advocate, Rowan has been featured on many online interviews and shares her experiences on stage, as we've talked about in live presentations. Her insights into non-human intelligence, which is another acronym that they're, banding about, NHI, non-human intelligence, instead of saying ETs or aliens, we're now calling them non-human intelligence, and government disclosure, expands into a spiritual understanding, giving a unique perspective into the UFO UAP phenomena. She's an active volunteer in the Australian community. Online, she shares news and other articles to help authenticate the information surrounding the UFO, UAP, and ET contact to help bring the message to the world that we belong to a cosmic, universal community of worlds. Rowan is a meditation instructor and an art therapist living in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. And her new book, which just came out, because when I met Rowan, the book wasn't out yet, but it just came out in June this year, The Travellers, is an experiencer's guide to extraterrestrial disclosure, where Rowan shares her remarkable true story of 40 years of contact with 3 different species who call themselves the Travellers. Memories of decades of her contact experience and what it feels like to be on board an ET craft. I really want to know what that feels like. I've dreamt about it often. I've sort of imagined it, I could say. Maybe I've done it, but I don't have conscious memory of it. So Rowan also tells the difficulties dealing with the stigma and trauma of extraterrestrial contact and the high strangeness which goes along with abductions from the travellers. This book is for experiences of all kinds of phenomena, not just extraterrestrial. Travel with Rowan as she learns how to live as an experiencer and eventually embrace the spiritual knowledge she learns from her galactic family or ET contact. All righty. It's a fascinating book. I read most of it yesterday. Rowan sent it to me yesterday. You. And I loved it because she said to me before we started, what did you think? So I had a few things to say, having put out a book series and dealt with people who were writing their stories, because people, it's not easy writing a book because you've got to write it in a way that's engaging and keeps people wanting to read. And I think you've done that. I think you've done well for your first book, really well.
Well, that's a big compliment. Thank you so much. Well, memories. That's all my memories. Well, actually, I've seen a couple of UFOs that I didn't mention, and had a couple of obviously other experiences. But I did not want to have hypnotherapy or hypnotism
Why?
uncover more memories. 40 years of I've had full memories. I've actually mostly my memories are intact. There's obviously some things that I think I've had. Well, I know I've had contact without memories being left, but I really was passionate about just keeping my memories. I don't want to muddy any waters. I just really want to. That's why I was so specific with every little memory. I'm delving into every little thought and memory that I had.
That's really interesting, because I've heard a lot of people say this, or not a lot, but a few, that, you know, they didn't want to have hypnotherapy because they didn't want to muddy the waters. But I feel, as somebody who takes people on hypnotic journeys, that hypnotherapy deepens your memory. So when we relax, we move out of that beta brainwave into an alpha, and then we relax more, we move into a theta, and then we relax more, we move into deeper levels of expansion of consciousness. So hypnosis is just that process of relaxing, so you can access memories, you can access subconscious, but then the akashic, as it's called, like memories of past life, memories of pre-life, like memories. It's just accessing. And I know myself that I have a lot of memory of who I am, but if I want to know more, just going into hypnosis will really divulge much more. That's how I feel. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to muddy the water. I think it's going to. Anyway, it's just interesting. It's a different perspective. But you do have a lot of memories.
Muddy the water's not the right. But, you know, some people do say, oh, well, you know, she was led. She's had, you know, it's almost a little, this stigma is so difficult anyway, let alone if you have something like another reason for people to doubt your story. You know, it's so, it's been a real, the trauma is something that is real, you know, and stigma and judgment. As you mentioned before, my old relationship, I couldn't discuss anything with that person. So there was no support when I actually opened up about what I was going through with my experiences. So I had a lot of that trauma for all my whole life, with friends and family. You know, people just, oh, she's crazy, off she goes. You know, they just cut you out of their life because of
I do know
my experiences. And so the act of writing the book was actually like I rewrote, took out negative things. I was like, no, I'm not owning their judgments anymore. I'm embracing really what happened and just trying to learn everything that they were trying to teach me. And I realized that actually they're teaching through their own demonstration of what we can do. And that's where I really kind of went. I think that's the answer, is that they're demonstrating everything we can actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with, because I know that you've got pre-birth memories, like you've got memories before you came to Earth. So let's start with that. What did you remember?
Well, I remember when I was 3, this is how I know this is a pre-memory. When I was 3, I would actually cry when I was remembering a past life, in between lives. And I thought, how would I have known anything about that? Of course, I wouldn't know anything about it when you're 3. So, and I realized, well, that is actually a real memory then. When I was 6 weeks old, that was my first memory in this life. And I know that because we came over from England and Scotland to live in Australia. And I remember the aeroplane trip. And so I was able to confirm that with my mum and dad when I was much older. You know, I said it was raining, it was really stormy. I was upset because I thought maybe I might not actually get back to my body. So I knew I was spiritual. I knew I was a spirit even when I was 6 weeks old. And I remembered many more memories after that. So I was really lucky that you know, my memories. I'm not saying I'm not one of those people that remember everything, because that's certainly not the case with me. But I do have a lot of memories from, I actually, in past lives, I do have a lot of past life memories as well. So I do remember, like we were discussing before the show, I remember being a monk or a nun and a witch and a medicine woman, and many other memories from past lives as well. And I think some people are born with remembering past lives in this life.
Yeah.
It's more and more now. People are actually remembering past lives, and it's not unusual anymore. So yeah. As I tried to sort of say in my book, was this is not just me remembering things. This is not just my experience. This is everybody, the worldwide's experiences. And we're all coming, I think, to the point where we are growing and we're learning from our past lives and weird experiences. So many people have had weird experiences.
Yeah. So before you came, there's a bit of a delay in the internet because Rowan's on a dongle. Is that what you call it? Hotspot. Anyway, before you came, what were the memories? Like, what were you thinking before you came into the baby's body? Do you remember that? The pre-life memories?
No, not really. But I do remember, well, I suppose we might call it being a spirit guide. So when somebody passes over, you have a spirit guide helping them in that afterlife area. And I was that spirit guide. So I think we're all capable of being spirit guides, and we're all spirits or souls when we we live forever, all of us. We're all, nobody's any different to anybody else. And I also think that's where we should come from when we're talking about NHI or any of the other beings that we meet. We're all spiritual beings. We're all souls. We're all living experiences here.
Yeah.
We're all learning, and some of us have more to learn from other people, but I think we're never going to end learning.
Yeah, exactly. But what happened to you when you were 8 years old?
Right. So I was only little, obviously, in a place called Taree in New South Wales. And when I was 8 years old, 8 or 9, I would be in bed and these creatures would come into my room. They were about 3 foot tall. They were black or really dark skinned, like leathery sort of skin. They didn't look like a grey ET or anything. They looked like, small hooded. They all were wearing hoods. They were all wearing robes, and there was three of them. So they would come and take me out of the room, and we went somewhere. I don't know where. I didn't even know anything about extraterrestrials, obviously, when I was 8. Nobody was talking about it. So this would have been 1980. And so these beings would come, and I would know that they were going to come. Somehow I would know that these beings were going to come into my room. It wasn't every night, but I'd be petrified, and I would lay every night with the sheet over my head, or blankets or any other thing I could find, pulled all the way up, and just so scared that these beings were going to come into my room. And they'd hurt me. They actually didn't communicate to me. They would just take me and off we would go. But there was one of 3 things that they did. So the 3 things were, number 1, there was something that I don't remember. So this is maybe one of these memories I can access eventually with hypnotism. Another thing that they were doing was they would demonstrate how they would make time go really slow or make time go really fast. So they would quicken time. So everything would be going like top speed, or everything would be really slow. So I noticed that some people actually talk about time stopping or time, things going really slow, even on the internet today. And another thing, the third thing that they would do, and this never happened unless they were there and they made this happen, was when they would put me back into bed, the room would start spinning. It wouldn't spin around in circles that way. It would spin top to bottom, and it would, and not just slowly like that, but it would go, you know, so fast, like, you know, where I couldn't see any anything. There was no top or bottom to the room. It was just top speed going around like that, and I'd be left like that for a while until it stopped. So for whatever reason, they were just messing around with reality and showing me that, well, there was no such thing as reality. This wasn't real life, wasn't reality. So they could somehow manipulate reality.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So even at age 8, I was like, oh my God, questioning everything. So, and that would happen all night. So I'd be awake about an hour before dawn. I would be popped back in my bed. So I, like I said, I didn't know anything about extraterrestrials at age 8. It was just that I was taken out of my room by these 3 beings. We went somewhere or other, and then they'd drop me back in bed, and sometimes they would just spin the room spinning, and I couldn't get out of bed because the room was spinning, you know. I have somebody who suggested it might have been like inner ear problems, but it never, ever happened unless they were there. So I have to sort of say, you know, I don't really trust that it was my body creating that. They were creating it.
Yeah. They sound like, time travelers. It does sound like when you're talking about the room spinning, it does sort of, when you watch movies about time travel, usually they depict some sort of whirling vortex that people go through, like traveling through time. When I was reading it in your book yesterday, I was thinking about Penny Kelly's story of the robes, you know, about 45 years ago when she was in her 30s or 20s. These little men in brown robes showed up in her kitchen and said that they wanted to show her stuff, and they took her through time, and they were talking about this time now on Earth 45 years later, but they also showed her about 300 years into the future, and then 20 years after they first showed up, they came back and said, now we want you to write about it. And she was like, I'm not writing a book about predictions. Anyway, she wrote the book, you know, about 25, 30 odd years ago, and it's been a bestseller. And but I don't think she described them quite like you. She said they were just men, like short men. I said, how short?
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
5 foot, but they looked human. But your little guys looked a little bit more fanciful, a bit more.
No, they look. I call them. What did you call them? Sorry.
Goblinly, sort of like a goblin or something.
I don't know. Well, they were men. I always called them men. I didn't think that they did have obviously eyes, nose, mouth, but they were really wide faced, really big, short, stout guys. But they're all, I just called them dark. I mean, I don't like to use the word black, so, you know, dark brown or
dark skin. Dark
skin. In the book I've listed a few people who had also seen them too, and it's amazing to find other people who have seen the same things. I mean, I was only 8, so you don't make these things up, you know, you can't make this stuff up. It was, and in the book also I've mentioned that Where the Wild Things Are, mum had that book when we were little, when I was little. And I thought that was the beings. I thought that they were actually depicted on the book. So I thought that the book was a guidebook then to help me. Oh, good. You know, someone's finally going to tell me what's going on. But it wasn't. It was a really scary kids book for me. Yeah. It's not a fun book. I don't even like the movie. Yuck. It's awful. So obviously they didn't have horns, but just the hooded ones. Yeah,
hooded men in brown robes. Bloody has a question here. Were these beings living beings or more like drones controlled by consciousness? Interesting question, Bloody.
No, I'm sure, 100% sure they were living. But what's interesting is that I've found stories of these beings going back 2,000 years.
Okay.
And there's actually depictions of, stone reliefs and things all the way from the Mediterranean all the way up to Hadrian's Wall. They've carved on Hadrian's Wall, apparently. These three hooded beings. What? How's that happening? So, yeah, I think it's an accident that I named the book The Travellers, because I didn't even think about time traveling or astral traveling. But actually, I think that's exactly what these people are doing. When I asked, well, you can get to why, the next part of the story about why I know that they're called the Travellers when you're ready.
Well, yeah. Well, they were the first beings that you remember. I mean, hypnosis you would gain more insight. You'd probably remember conversations with them. You probably remember where they took you. That like when you do that sort of thing, you just remember a lot more. Because I know that when I wake up in the morning, I will have memories of like falling asleep and waking up, but there's a whole chunk in between which I don't have access to. And I know that hypnosis can help you gain that access.
Yeah, but, good.
So what happened next? Like, when was the next encounter with the Travellers?
Well, the actual first encounter that I recall with people who called themselves the Travellers was I was 19. So this was 10 years later. Okay. And I was living in Noosa. And I went outside, and it was dark. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and I thought, oh no, I haven't hung some washing out, as you do. So I went outside, grabbed the stuff, and went outside and was hanging it out, and a ball of light came down out of the sky. It was about the same size as a basketball, maybe slightly larger, and I thought, oh wow, here's a min light. This is what they look like. Who knew? So obviously people have talked about will-o'-the-wisps and these sorts of things going through trees. And I thought, oh, one's come down out of the sky. This is really it's really close to me. So I've heard other people talking about them, maybe on TV. And I thought, oh, it's a min light. So this light was right in front of me, probably only about 5 foot away from me. But it was floating closer to me and further away. It was at eye level. And I thought, oh, I bet this thing's radioactive or it's got radiation. I better not touch it. And it was there for about 5 minutes. And I can't remember whether I was continuing to hang out washing. I probably was. And then it came, rocketed at my face, and it hit me on the left side of my face, and I never saw it again. I don't know what it did, but I was floating up in the air then, and I was floating up, and I was probably about 100 meters in the air, and then I sort of realized what was happening, and I looked up, and there was a rectangular spacecraft up in probably about 300 meters in the air, and the thing had it was white, and it had what I can only describe as a double hull. So it was like a kind of metal frame connected to the rectangular fuselage of this spacecraft, and inside the metal frame was red hot glowing like a grill, elements of a grill, and it was really hot, red, glowing and red hot with heat waves coming out of it. And I was just floating up towards it. And I was looking kind of at this thing and thinking, God, what's happening? I'm basically floating in the air with nothing touching me. And I was getting drawn up towards this craft. And I thought, oh God, I better try and remember every little detail that I see, because this is really unusual. I've never seen anything like this before. This craft was just sitting up above suburbia in Noosa, this was. So I was getting drawn up and up and up. And when I passed between the elements of the craft, I came up in to the flight deck of this craft, and there were 4 tall blonde. They looked again like men and women. They didn't look like aliens or anything out of this. They looked out of this world because they were about 2 meters tall, and they didn't look like this. This was 1990, so we didn't have stuff like this then. I didn't believe. I still don't really believe that we did, humans, that is. So I landed on top of, in the spacecraft with these 4 tall blondes. It's all I don't call them Nordics or Arcturians or any. I don't even know what they were, but I was like, these guys aren't from here. So I was trying to go, what do I say to these people? I have to kind of give them a hint that I'm not here to hurt them. I mean, they're the ones that drew me up off the ground, I suppose, somehow with this min light or whatever it was. And so I was basically standing there going, oh God, what do I say to these people? And what blurted out of my mouth was, greetings, welcome to planet Earth. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? What stupid thing to say. And I was like, well, who thought of that? Like blurted out. And I sort of stepped forward like, hi, you gotta like me because whatever. This is what my, obviously something went when the thing hit me, something wasn't quite right. Anyway, so that didn't go down well though. These creatures were like, what the hell is this girl doing? And they're like, yeah, get back. And I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't working. This is not a movie, And so this woman, one of the women says to me, if you touch us, it will kill you. And I'm like, way, okay, this is really actually scary. And I was like, what was I thinking? Of course this is scary. These people aren't from here. What am I doing? Trying to get close to these ones. I should be running away. Anyway, so
nowhere to run though, darling. You're on a spaceship.
I know. And I was like, oh. And then I was like, well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna rape me? Are you gonna kill me? Are you gonna duck me? Are you gonna take me away? Am I never going to be seen again?
Yeah.
And then the what I call the tall blonde man, he was actually, he wasn't too bad. He was they were all scary, put it this way. They're not from here, I don't recommend trying to get close to these people, and he just said, oh, we've come to invite you to fly the craft. And I was like, what? I felt like I was going to die a second ago by this woman saying, if you touch us, it will kill you. And I'm like, whoa. So I actually thought by that description that there were 4 tall blondes, 2 women and 2 men, long hair. I had long blonde hair too. So it was like, we all looked so similar, but they had ice blue eyes. My eyes are green. And I thought, oh, if they're suits, so if I touch them, maybe I'll get electrocuted or something. So that was what was going through my mind. So this guy's like, we've come to invite you to fly the craft. So I was like, oh, okay. So I thought, well, this way I can get away from that woman, So we walked over to the right-hand side, from where I was standing. The 4 of them were in front. And then to the right-hand side, there were 2 white swivel seats, which is weird too, because I was like, I remember these swivel seats really clearly. I sat in the left-hand swivel seat. Oh, no, I didn't actually. The man sat in there, and he was instructing me on how to fly the craft. So he's really tall and sat down, and I was standing next to him watching what he's doing. We're both at eye level, and what's really weird is that they were really, really good looking. They were like, whoa, really good looking people. Like these guys aren't from here, yet they're so good looking. What's that about? I don't know what it's about. So he sat next to me, and I was like, oh, really good looking. Try not to touch him, trying to have a look at how to fly the craft. So I eventually hopped in the seat, me being much shorter. And I was like, oh, this isn't working. Clearly, you got the wrong gal here. So and he's like, yes, it is. It's working. And I'm like, no, it isn't. We're not moving at all. He's like, stand up and have a look out. So I was able to look out the windshield, and I could see down below us moving over fields. And I could see the fields, like the farms. We were moving slow enough that I could see the fences moving underneath us. So I was like, oh, wow, this is working, Somehow I'm flying their craft. I can't remember exact things, but I think it was obviously something to do with perhaps my ability or my DNA, or there was some reason which I don't remember. Another one I've got to try and remember. Somehow I was able to fly their craft. So after a little while, of me flying the craft. I didn't even have my driver's license, which was so weird. And yet they're like, fly this craft. I'm like, sure, great. So anyway, I flew this craft for a little bit. And then the guy's like, no, you think that's fast? Check this out. This is fast. So he hopped in. It was like, that ain't a knife. This is a knife, this sort of thing. I know. And so he got in the driver's seat. We swapped. So I was standing next to him on his right-hand side, but he was in the left-hand driver's seat. And he just went like so fast and so far, and so like we could see there's no longer fields, just you could see that fence going underneath like that. So this was just like, and he was driving for a long, long time, and I was going, this ain't right. We're not. This isn't stopping. We're not stopping. This isn't a flight instruction anymore. This is like an abduction. I'm like, where are we going? And
were you out in space at this point? Or were you still traversing the Earth?
Yeah, there was no movement inside, so that's why I couldn't tell we were moving before.
Yeah.
So when he was going, you still couldn't tell, but I could see outside. I was watching outside, just landscape, shooting past. Or we were going so fast, should I say? And eventually, I was like, I kept saying, "Can we go back? Where are we going? This is taking a long time. If we don't go back now, it's going to be hours before." To get us to go back, and it's going to be morning time, Anyway, so I was like, God, I've got to get his attention. So I reached over and just squeezed his arm like this. It's like, excuse me, but can we go back now? And I was like, I didn't die. Yay! Yeah. I didn't die, but meanwhile, the woman the two women were behind watching me. They didn't kill me, which was nice as well. And he eventually said, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, yes, we will go back. He said, but first we have to give you an implant in the back of your neck. And when I reached back there, I've actually got a lump there. Like it's about a centimetre round. And I think that I got that from the little dark hooded guys. And that's another memory that kind of came up later, that I was like, did they operate on me? Because I've had that lump for most of my life. So what happened next was I just woke up in my bed like that. And I was like, I went, oh, God, they've thought they were going to shave the back of my head. That's what they explained to me. So the females came over then, and they said, we're going to shave the back of your head and put an implant into that part of your neck. And I was like, oh my God, yuck, I'm going to have like a horrible haircut. Just more worried about a haircut. Ridiculous. Anyway, so I woke up like in my bed, and it was morning. And I woke up and I went, oh God, oh no, I don't have a shaved hair. I've got that lump. And I was like, that lump's been there forever. And I was like, I must have dreamt all this. So I got up and I thought, no, I couldn't have dreamt it because I was there, you know. And I also remember the tall man standing in front of me with the other three. And he said, is there anything else you want to ask us? And I was like, well, yeah. Where are you guys from? And he said, we're travelers. I'm like, no, you don't get it. What planet are you from, you know? And he said, we're travelers. And I was like, okay, fine, you're not going to tell me. And that's why I named the book The Travelers, because these guys, they don't call themselves Palladians or Nordics or Arcturians or whatever. Yeah. So then I went upstairs after I woke up, and I turned the radio on, and there was a UFO reported that night. Yeah. And it was a long green UFO, a big cylindrical, actually it was two, I think. It was either two guys reported 3 UFOs or 3 guys reported 2 UFOs. I can never remember which one it was. And the radio announcer had actually been out fishing with his mates, and he'd seen two of these long green cylindrical UFOs go over the water or inside the water. And he was the radio announcer. He was actually saying he'd seen that. So I'm standing there going, oh my God, you know, that was no dream. I didn't think it was a dream. And they'd actually said to me before what I remember is I said, will I see you again? And they said, yes, you will. And I thought, oh, they're coming that day. So I spent the next day, that whole day, looking everywhere for these 4 tall blondes. And why would I do that if it was a dream? It doesn't make sense, you know. So I was looking for them all day long. And plus the green UFO. And, so that's the most intense experience that I've ever kind of had with them, with anything, you know. So
thank you for sharing. I've got a couple of questions. You're all hot now.
No, it's just like trying to get it all out and try, you know, people say to me, oh, you're not really reacting. I'm like, hello, it's an abduction. I was in a hostage sort of situation. This is not fun, you know.
Well, interesting, an abduction. It's like they take you on their craft and they say, do you want to pilot the craft and take you home? It's kind of weird. And it's not really an abduction. It's kind of like a joyride. But let me ask you, I've got a couple of questions. Vladdy's got some questions here too. Did they speak telepathically to you, or were they speaking verbal English? Like, how are they communicating?
They were speaking English,
English.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And Vladdy said, now where's that question? He was talking about the craft. Was it a man-made craft? He said, because it was, like there's a lot of information out there saying that the triangular crafts are all back engineered. Yeah.
This was not triangular. This one was rectangular. So Charles Hall is one who I've actually found very similar spacecraft to what I've seen. That's because he even had swivel seats in theirs, and they had these red tubules and rectangular craft. It's pretty unusual. So I was really looking out for anything. Yeah. I have had experience with triangular as well. So
you have. I was thinking that too when I first heard Rowan share it, and then she was sharing about being, lifted up into the craft from this light, and I'm like, I don't care how advanced the back engineering is. I don't think humans have got that one down yet. I don't think that they can levitate us up in the air I don't think we've got that down. Well, I might be wrong. I could be wrong. Who knows what's happening in the secret space programs? But
Yeah.
and
having said that, with the telepathic question, when I was floating up, I actually did hear a telepathic thing being said to me.
Okay.
It was like, don't look down, look up,
Okay.
over and over. It was like a kind of beacon. Don't look down, look up. Don't look down, look up. And that was telepathic. That wasn't out loud. So, yeah, they do use some sort of telepathy somehow. Something's using telepathy.
Maybe that's how they dominantly communicate. But because
Yeah.
you're a human, they're speaking to you in, I don't know, who knows. There's a lot more to explore. And Vladdy also says, do you remember how big the craft was on the outside and how big it is on the inside? Did you find a discrepancy? Did you think it looked enormous?
No, not personally. I thought it was, I'm going to say about 5 meters wide, perhaps, and maybe 7 meters, 8 meters long.
Yeah.
So I sort of thought like a minibus.
Right.
But when I was standing out on the deck area, there was enough space. Like it was a big, flat, open deck. I'm going to say deck because it's the only words that we've got for these things. And then over on one side, like the shorter side, if you get what I'm saying, like of the minibus. So imagine a minibus, nothing in it except for 2 swivel seats and the window at the front, and just an area in the middle, so where we're all standing in the area in the middle. If that makes sense.
And it does.
So,
and when
I don't know about discrepancy.
When they asked you, some people say that craft on the outside looks a lot smaller, and when they get inside, it's enormous, like the TARDIS. There's been stories of that, especially the little scout ships. But when you're piloting the craft, how were you piloting the craft? Were you pressing buttons?
I don't think so. No, it was very simple. And I thought, this isn't working because it wasn't mechanical. It was a different form of piloting, whether it's a touch screen or whether it's some sort of DNA or whether it's consciousness, whatever was happening. Somehow I had the ability. I don't know what the ability was because I don't remember, because I was 19. Now I'm 52 now, so a long time ago. But, trust me, I've been thinking about this stuff for 40 bloody years or however long that is, 30 years of going, what was I doing, That's why I know exactly what I was feeling and thinking and what they said, because it's in there and I've just been thinking about it ever since. It's not like I had anyone to talk to about this stuff. Who would believe this sort of stuff? Until now.
And the presence in the craft, I mean, when your fear subsided, you sounded pretty brazen, I have to say, like, welcome to planet Earth. It's hilarious.
Oh, what an idiot.
I think that you were probably in quite a lot of fear, and I think, I can only just speculate or not. I think that what the lady was saying was she was saying, if you touch us, it'll kill you. Maybe because humans go into an aggressive fear response and want to attack people. I think she could probably sense your fear, and she was just trying to protect herself, because obviously when you touched them, you didn't die, but maybe that she was just trying to like protect herself, like, please don't come and attack us. But did you feel any other vibration when your fear alleviated? Like, because you sounded like you were on the craft for a while. Did it feel like a loving environment, or were you sort of scared the whole time?
I was scared of her for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know. They were sitting behind somewhere. So I don't remember exactly where they were sitting, to tell you the truth. But they were behind me, and I just, when you feel like, someone's there and they're just going to hurt me if I'm not careful. I actually think that they had a really strict sort of rules of respect and protocol. But when I first arrived up there, the lady herself, I was actually shocked that a woman was the one in charge. She felt like the boss. She stepped forward, and there ain't no messing around with her, sort of thing. And that was for me to, sorry.
So there were 2 women and 2 men.
Yeah, and the other 2 didn't talk. So there was only one woman that spoke to me. I think that maybe the 2 of them did talk to me when they were explaining about the implant thing, which, by the way, I've had x-rays and so on, and unfortunately there's nothing that I can see, me trying to look myself, So, and I was like, well, I thought that maybe they hadn't given it me because I had no shaven head, spiky bits, and I had that mole thing or scar or whatever's back there. But then I realized years later, when I was trying to figure all this stuff out, I thought, hang on, they've actually tracked me all around the world. So the next time I had something was 3 years later, and I was in England. My dad had taken me back to England, me and my brother. And so I kept some travel diaries. So I was able to actually find exact dates that these things happen. When was Christmas, it was the day after Christmas. So we just had seen family in London for Christmas, and Dad had booked a cabin, a really pretty nice cabin in Arbroath in Scotland. That's where he was born. He was born and raised, and all my family's all over there. So he's like, we're just going to drive from London straight up to Scotland on one night. So it must have been midnight, just before midnight when we left. And it was going to take 9 hours for us to drive. So we'd get there in the morning time. And so what happened was I had the whole back seat to myself, being nighttime. I thought, I can lie down if I want to sleep. My brother, who's younger than me, was in the front seat. So he was asleep most of the night. And Dad was driving. And being nighttime, what do? I just was staring around outside trying to see things. It was pitch black, So eventually I noticed something above the car, and I was looking outside, and I thought, there's funny lights up there that they must be reflected off the car, because our car was going and this thing was tracking directly above our car. I thought that there must have been lights shining up onto fog or coming through fog or something going on. So it looked like that fog had lights in it or projected up into it, and going like mirroring our car's movement along the highway for hours. So I was there for like a long time trying to decide what these lights were. So there was 2 circles of lights or more. Look, I can't remember. I just remember 2, because they were going opposite ways. But they were also pulsating in and out like that to the center rhythmically, as well as pulsing, going around in circles. So they'd be going around but also coming in and out. And I was like, what does that, And I was looking at, they're going, clearly it's something reflecting off our car, obviously. There's nothing else for it. And I didn't even think that it was a UFO. And I was like, well, it must be hubcaps reflecting, shining up there, clearly, obviously. What is? And I was like, what's this? That hubcaps don't do this. How's it reflecting up? Anyway, hours and hours later, I was watching it for hours, and so I was winding the window down, looking outside, going, Dad, what on earth is that anyway? And so then, if I didn't see it, I'd scoot across to the other window and open the window up and look out. And I don't know what it was. So, but it was traveling with our car, and we eventually pulled up at a service station, and Dad was like, all right, we're going to have a rest here. So, all right, great. I'm going off to the, facilities So that will do, yeah. So I went in there and came back out, and Dad's like, "Where are you? Where were you? You're forever." And I was like, "Oh, I just went to the toilet." And I'm like, "Okay, great, let's have a rest now." And he's like, "No, we're going." I'm like, "Where are we going? We just got here." And he's like, "No, we've already rested." And that blew my mind. It wasn't until years later that I realized I must have had missing time, because I've actually got it recorded in my journal that Dad was cranky at me because I was taking so long. I just went in there and back again. So something happened there, don't know what. So this is where I'm saying, like, it was different to the other experiences that I'd had in my life. And I haven't even mentioned that I had the missing pregnancies yet, but anyway.
We've got a lot to get through
because
your story is extensive, and we are running out of time already.
I know,
We've been going for about an hour, and I need to do a station ID break. So you're listening to Karen Swain, accentuating the positive, expanding and awakening consciousness on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, syndicated radio, streaming out of 107.7 New Orleans and 105.3 on the Gulf Coast. And we are on about 8 internet platforms, streaming on about 8 internet platforms. And we're talking with Rowan Bo, an experiencer, a contactee. Look, Dane, you're obviously a really special person. I don't think you really understand how special you are. And when I say special, there's lots of you on the planet, but there's a lot more to you than you remember. You say that, you know, you have access to memories, but I reckon there's a lot more to you than meets the eye, because something happened to you when you were 16. You were in a car accident. And do you want to talk about that car accident? We're going to get back to the contact experience, because something happened that is quite extraordinary for a 16-year-old. Like, tell us what happened.
Yeah, so I was in a car accident. I was at school. But a week before that, my mum, apparently, I don't know whether she told me beforehand, but she certainly was very vocal about it afterwards. She tried to walk into my bedroom, and she couldn't access my bedroom for whatever reason. And something was telling her that I wasn't going to be home for a very long time. And mum was crying, burst into tears. And on that night of the car accident, I don't think I mentioned this bit in my book, actually, Mum was packed up, ready to go. She knew I was going to be in a car accident somehow. Yeah. She had the cats out the door. She had a coat on. She had her keys, waiting for the phone call.
Right.
And the phone call came, and Mum was already ready to drive in to the hospital. Mum knew. So yeah, that was really, who told Mum, who knew in a week in advance that I, number one, wasn't going to die. 3 of our friends, school friends, died. I don't understand how anybody can know what's going to happen in the future. How did they know I wasn't going to be home for a very long time? I was in hospital a month. I broke both legs, one arm, had a punctured lung and an orbital fracture. I've got a scar there. And yeah. So, like I said, three friends died. I didn't go back to school. I'm still having problems with it to this day. But, you know, yeah, so
but
there's something.
I heard you say that you were really helpful to the people that were grieving, because you understood that there was no death. And you understood that even though that your 3 friends had died, that you would see them again. And like you had this really enlightened view, you know, more than most 16-year-olds have, about the whole incident. Do you think you had an NDE, a near-death experience, during that time?
No, but I was the only one who didn't pass out. I was able to call help, like shouting. I was the only one that was awake. Somehow I stayed conscious and shouted out to people to help us. It was on a bush. It was in the bush. And actually it was one of our other school friends who lived nearby who heard and recognized my voice from school somehow. And he got his dad, and they called the ambulances. So, yeah, but I know what you're referring to, because the priest actually came and talked to us in the hospital, and I was like, they're not dead. And you know what? My other friend who was my best friend was in the car accident too. She actually dreamt about the 3 other girls that had died, and she'd said goodbye to them.
Yeah. Incredible experiences.
Sorry.
And
still upsetting to this day, you know, because I'm still having trouble. My friend just had a knee replacement because it's a stupid thing. Sorry.
Because of the car accident.
Yeah, because of the car accident. And how weird. Why did we have to have a car accident, you know? Who told us we were going to have a car accident? Just doesn't what I mean. Like, my mind just gets blown with this stupid things, crazy things that have happened in my life. It just, and that does, haven't even told you that. I'll just touch on things briefly now, because I know we're running out of time. But when two things. When I went to Africa, I saw that Noosa UFO twice in the middle of Africa. It went over my head twice. So they must have given me an implant, and it must have been the tall blondes, because if you link my events of that night in Noosa when I was 19, when I was 24, I went to Africa and just did trekking over there. And a scout craft went overhead, and the green UFO went overhead twice. So they must have somehow tracked me. And then when I moved to Sydney, when I came back from Africa in 1997, for about 20 years, I had about once a year, the Greys would come and get me in a black triangular spacecraft, as it was. So I had who I call the Grey Lady. She didn't look anything like Whitley Strieber's front cover. I'll just go there. This Grey Lady had she looked actually a little bit like Skinny Bob. Anyone who knows what Skinny Bob looks like, I reckon that's a lady. It's not a boy alien. That's what she looked like. She's really, she had this presence, like this really powerful presence of spirituality and love, and you could actually feel her love coming towards me on this black triangular spacecraft. So from 97 to about 2000, for about 20 years anyway, I was having experiences about once a year with who I call the Grey Lady. So she would almost mind meld with me. She'd sit about, I don't know, 2 foot away. We would be sitting opposite each other, and her big eyes, we would stare at each other. I wasn't scared. Oh, yes, I was scared of her, but just because she looked so unusual, but because she just had a presence of this amazing ancient, it's the only way I call it universal love, because it's so ancient and so powerful, this love that she was emitting, that when I had to go, anyone who emits that much love, they can't be horrible, you know. And then she would sort of mind meld with me. It's the only way I can explain it. We would share like a consciousness, and every thought that I had, she would kind of draw out and say, but you still feel this fear, but you still feel that fear. You're still judging me, you know, because our thoughts, she could somehow, we could hear each other's thoughts, you know. And that word communion for Whitley Strieber's book, that's exactly what that was, a communion, like a common union of minds, where she would reach in and go, but you still feel that. So I had those lessons for 20 years, and my life reflected those lessons because I was a medical secretary. So I had lots of different people, people in Australia, as you know, Karen, we have people from all around the world living here. And so, anyone who's sick, I was able to empathize with, not judge. So I had to learn how to not judge and how to accept anybody who looks different. So this is one of these things I was talking about demonstrating their abilities, I suppose, to help us to be better people.
Yeah, you depict that in the book really well. I think that story is so beautiful that she was quite frightening looking because she was kind of a different looking grey, not like, we're so used to seeing through Whitley Strieber and a whole lot of other depictions of greys. But what she taught you was to love and accept difference. Yeah. And this is something that we are on Earth as a collective struggling to do. We want to kill each other because we don't think the same, we don't look the same, we don't worship the same, and we're not in acceptance of our differences, our different beliefs. I mean, even the political arena, it's like you vote for a different team and I want to hate you for it. Or even sporting games, like you rally for a different team and I want to hate you for it, get drunk in the pub and then beat you up. I mean, we are just babes in the woods when it comes to loving our differences, like vive la différence, like loving and accepting people's differences. And so that lesson that she gave you about loving and acceptance is a powerful lesson, and one that
and it's a lesson for all of us.
All of us.
And it also taught me that that love, that feeling of love, is universal. This isn't like just humans feeling this, and we should, I really I believe this, that we as a collective need to look at all the species that are in contact with us, and that's what I try and talk about in my book as well. It's not just greys, it's not just Palladians or whatever you want to call them, it's not just reptilians or anything. There's so many different species, and as you read, there's the elementals, there's all sorts of, Christopher Bledsoe has the lady, not the grey lady, but the, almost like an apparition that comes to him. And this, I've really tried to draw out lots of species that's actually interacting with humanity, and I can only guess that they're coming in through dimensions, which we must be able to access ourselves, as you've said. Like
everyone's talking about disclosure. Like there's a whole lot of conversations going on the internet about disclosure. When's it going to happen? Even in my group today, someone posted, worldwide disclosure is going to happen next year, 2026. And Chris Bledsoe has said that, something in April is going to happen, which will make the awareness of us being a part of a cosmic family. But until we learn as a collective, as a human race, to love and accept our differences, how can we ever learn to love and accept the differences of the many trillions of different life forms that exist in different dimensions and across the universe? It's a big lesson that we need to learn. But something else that happened with you traveled to Africa, and I love this part of your book, that you were in the Drakensberg Mountains and you had an experience in the Drakensberg Mountains. I want to show this because this is such a beautiful image of, because and you mention in the book too that you read Elizabeth Clara's book,
light barrier, I think, beyond the light barrier. I actually haven't read it. I'll just say I haven't read it, but I do know people who actually knew her personally. Yes, that's exactly where we were staying, right? Not on top there, but if you have a look at the next valley over, under the ridge. There he is. Yeah, so we were trekking all through there. It's just beautiful. and see the clouds
Yeah.
at the top. So when we were right at the bottom, we were in the campsite down there, and it was already dark. And so up overhead, though, it was still blue sky, and you see there's a cloud there. Well, from out of one of these clouds came one of these orbs again that we'd seen a week before in a completely different area of Africa, in Zimbabwe. And I'll just tell you about the first incident. We were on a canoe trek, and the canoe was in the middle of a massive valley, and the valley was full of water, and there was nobody else around for miles and miles and miles. And this one orb flew right overhead, and in the mountains, way, way, way on the horizon, was one of these green cylindrical UFOs, and it was going across like that. And I was like, my God, I know what that is. You know, I'd heard the UFO after like on the radio in Noosa, and I had heard exactly what it looked like by the radio announcer, so I knew exactly what it was. And everyone in the canoe camp was sort of saying, "Oh, what's that? What could that possibly be?" And I was like, "Oh God, I know exactly what it is. I'm not going to tell anybody how I know." I just said, "Oh, I think it's a UFO." And as soon as I said that, that UFO just disappeared. And a week later, that same UFO appeared directly above us in those mountains. And this time it was traveling sideways like that, straight above us. And it was so big that it was hard to explain. It would have been maybe 1 kilometre across, long. And it was actually, it was this sort of colour, fluorescent green.
Oh yeah.
And it was like glass or something. It was like an optic fiber, actually, because optic fibers on the ends glow brighter. So it was massive. Yeah. So I'm like, why are these things tracking me? I realized that they must have been, because we're in the middle of nowhere. We're in Africa.
Well,
And yet,
what I loved about this is that you speak about these tall, I don't know, you said 2 meters. What's that, about 7 foot tall blonde beings?
Oh, must have been bigger than that. Yeah.
Bigger than that, 8 foot tall.
Maybe 8 foot tall.
Yeah. That
I'm
were
5.
beautiful.
Yeah.
That call themselves the Travellers. And, you know, in Elizabeth Clara's book, she encountered the same type of beings on the top of the Drakensberg Mountains.
Yes.
And she depicts them and, fell in love with one. And it turns out that she was from that planet and had come here to be human and to share her experiences with the relationship we have with another race of beings. I think they were from Alpha Centauri, originally from Venus. Anyway, the book is amazing. And when I was reading in your book, the correlation between the Travellers and your experiences on the Drakensberg Mountains, they said that they had to land their ship up there because it was less polluted than it was on the rest of the world. Like, this is in the 50s, I think she was having this experience, or 60s, I can't remember. Anyway, and that photograph that I showed you of the Drakensberg Mountain, that's actually the Wikipedia photograph of the mountains, and that a cloud that you see looks just like it could be a ship, doesn't it? Just on Wikipedia. I love it. Yeah,
that's exactly what it looks like, and it's just spectacular. And as you can see, there's no other people around. You know, there's no townships up there. In fact, it's a national park.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. I really need to read that book, but I only just found it right at the very end when I'm trying to research correlating stories. I was like, oh, there's got to be somebody else that's seen these things. So I was researching for weeks, just trying to find some evidence, other evidence.
I actually love in your book, you've got quite a few different stories in the book, not just your own, and you've got a lot of research in there about not just abduction or contactee experiences, but disclosure through the governments. And it's an all-rounded book. It sort of shares, your story, and then it shares other people's stories, and then it shares some proof of disclosure. So it covers all bases. And then at the end of the book, you get into teaching people about the importance of spirituality and enlightenment and meditation. So it's a book that anyone can read, really. It's got a lot of information in it for anyone having an awakening experience or trying to understand their own experiences as well. But but we haven't got into, we've got about 15 minutes left. We haven't got into the hybrid program. So you've had the time travelers show you about the illusion of time. You've had the travelers help you fly a spaceship.
Yeah, I know.
You've seen orbs and been tracked by, and you've been a part of the hybrid program. It's like they really, your sole plan before you got here, you put a lot on your plate. You said, right, this is what I'm going to experience as a human. And so let's talk about the hybrid program.
Well, as I touched on briefly, when I was actually 17, I had after my car accident, a year after, I got my first real boyfriend. And the first encounter that we had together, I became pregnant, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? So I was only 17. I just had that massive car accident. I'm sorry if it's not what we do in this society, but I actually had an abortion. And so we went to Sydney. Yeah, I went to Sydney, and in the abortion clinic, sorry, everybody, I know it's a sensitive subject. After the anaesthetic, the nurse came in, the recovery nurse came in to me and said, there was no fetus in your stomach. And I was like, okay, that's, you guys just must have missed it, maybe you're incompetent. I don't know. Maybe it was just like an accident. You just didn't see it. So I left it at that in my mind. And by this stage, remember, I was only 17, so I actually still didn't know anything about aliens or anything like that. So once I moved back from Noosa, I was with another boy, and I think I was like 20, 21. Anyway, so I got pregnant again. I'd already broken up with the guy. We didn't get on. So I found myself pregnant as a single person. I thought, oh God, I'm just gonna be extra careful next time. I'm never gonna do this again. I had another abortion, and I was like, right, that's it. I'm never doing, So the recovery nurse in a different hospital came and said exactly the same words that the other recovery nurse had said. She said, there was no fetus in your uterus. We never have to tell people this. And I was like, wow, God, that's weird. How could two different hospitals make the same mistake twice? And years and years have gone past. I've had, at the beginning of my life, I didn't know my life was going to end up with a massive amount of contact with ET. And it was only like until, when I started to piece all this together in 2022, like I've had just so many different weird experiences, and with different beings and different spacecrafts and different things and time travel and, past lives and all sorts of things. And I was like, oh my God, I think the ET took my babies. I don't remember. So I actually got, I just had nobody to turn. I didn't know how to find out about this stuff. So actually got a psychic to try and link in with my spirit guides or something to try and draw information out. I didn't tell them anything before. It was Andrew Radzowicz. He's actually coming to Cardwell. Actually, he's not coming to Cardwell. He's linking in. He's going to do an online presentation. So anyway, I said to him, oh, look, I'd like to just have a reading. Didn't say anything, just like leave a blank slate. And he, first thing he said was, who's got missing babies? And I was like, couldn't be me. It must be somebody else that, I don't know. So I was, he kept on going, who has missing babies? I just keep hearing there's babies. Who's lost babies? Who's lost babies? 2 babies. It's 2 babies. And I was like, oh God. And I said, are you talking about ET? He's like, oh, thank God you know about ET. And he said, because they are safe on the other side with family. So I've had, in my opinion, it's clear to me that there must be some sort of hybrid program going on. Something's taken my babies before the abortion.
Have you had?
And what's more is I've found other people who have had the same things.
Yeah. I've had many people on the show, and many people know that they've not just had 1 or 2, that they've had dozens. That their eggs have been a part of the hybrid program, and because they can take the babies, in the first gestation when you don't even know you're pregnant, and you just think that you're a month late or a couple of months late, and then you get a period, and it's an ongoing process. But with all of this that happens, if you have a healing process where you contact your soul or your higher self, there is always a spiritual agreement that what is happening to you here on earth, whether it's to do with ET contact and abductions or any of the traumas that we experience, that we've actually planned it, we've been in agreement with it, and that the traumas that we go through, both human and maybe extraterrestrial traumas, was actually all part of the plan, that we're here to help evolve the human race, and maybe being a part of the hybrid program is doing that as well, as teaching spirituality and disclosing experiences and disclosing the reality of life throughout the cosmos. It's all part of the plan, all the experiences that we have, all the traumas, even though it can be traumatic. I had a woman on the show years ago who since dropped off the circuit, like she was just a grandmother, but she had extensive experiences with the Greys, and she wrote a book called From Fear to Love about her terror and fear of being abducted by grey aliens. And then she realized that she was one of them, and they were beautiful, and she started to love them. And so she went from fear to love, and realized that was all part of her soul's plan. She remembered, like you, she remembered her soul planning experience of planning to come into a human body as a grey. She remembers being a grey and saying, yep, I'll come into the human experience and I'll take on a human body. And she said that she put all these traumas on her plate, like death, divorce, disease, all the traumas. And her guides were saying to her, you sure you want to take that all on? And as an enlightened being, even in a physical form, she's saying, yeah, I can handle it. But then coming into the human experience, it's like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, I know. It's like slap you across the head, like with multiple weird, mind-blowing experiences. How about this one?
How about this one?
Oh my God, exactly. And I've had no other choice but to accept this is really happening to us all, And they're really here. This is not even made up, This is just, we just have to accept it. That's disclosure.
Let me ask you before we go. We've got about 6 minutes left. What does a post-disclosure world look like to you? What would you imagine when I say post-disclosure? I mean, obviously we're talking about this to around, almost 500,000 people through syndicated radio. So the message is getting out there, but a post-disclosure world is when we join collectively as a human race the cosmos, and where, just like we understand there are different countries in the world, and we can go there and experience different societies and difference. When we understand that there are different societies throughout the cosmos that we can also join, what does a post-disclosure world look like to you?
Yeah, I agree. This is the start of us understanding, gathering information, I think somehow all of the contactees, like myself, are all saying very similar things, that we all should try and be more spiritual, if you want to call it that. Some like more enlightened, more aware, more I want to say activated, but that's probably just a catch cry. We need to all work on ourselves so that we are better people to present not only, to us as a collective to the cosmos, but we need to treat ourselves better individually, on all levels, actually. So that's why at the end of the book, I've sort of said a guide to experiencing. So when we focus on ourselves, when we try and become better people within ourselves, and try and activate our astral skills, through meditating, almost manifesting our life. Let's, like, by learning everything that we can about the universe, let's not keep saying this stuff isn't happening anymore. Let's just get it into, like, learn as much as we possibly can. It's not doing any of us any good being in the dark anymore. We really need to wake up and become enlightened and become aware and feed ourselves this information of what's actually, what are people saying, what are people actually experiencing. Let's really kind of knuckle down and figure all this out, because that's really going to bring us all up to speed with us all becoming a collective, part of the greater universe.
Yeah.
Through other people who are already in contact with each other and in contact with us.
So you think that a post-disclosure world looks like a more loving, more unified, kinder society, where we accept people's differences instead of judging them and trying to kill them and make them wrong and hating them and feeling separate to them. We accept that people live differently, think differently, believe differently, and we can love and accept them and feel unified anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the number one message, I think, for all of us. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's about time.
You'll be speaking at the upcoming Cardwell Festival, and this is you on the website next to Anthony Goodall. That guy that you had a reading with, Andrew, this is him here, right? Andrew.
Yeah.
He's done. I was thinking about reaching out to have him on the show, but I'm booked out before the festival. Mind you, Ross Coulthart did say he was going to come on, but he hasn't got back to me. If he doesn't, maybe I'll get Andrew on the show, because I've only got one spot, Ross's spot left. Because Ross said he did want to come on, but I've emailed him about 3 times since then, and I haven't heard back from him, so he might not come on. So he does readings, does he? I mean, I didn't understand.
Yeah. He's actually an experiencer himself. So I know he's seen things. He can call. He's CE5s, so he can call in. That's my partner there, Alex. He's the MC this year. There he is.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, next to Ross Coulthart. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So I know Andrew has had a lot of his own experiences. So that's why I was like, oh, great, he's a psychic. So let's call him up. I had a Zoom meeting with him. So, he wasn't. I was hoping he wasn't going to be scared about my experiences then. So he wasn't. He was very helpful.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, dang one, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for sharing. We didn't even, get to all of it. There was a million more questions that I had. I know it's not easy to share these things. You've been through a lot. I think Thea, she said ages ago in the comments that she too has a lot of experiences that she hasn't ever even shared publicly. I understand what you mean. Yeah, right at the beginning of the show, she said, well, I understand what you mean, Ro. I have memories, experience that I haven't expressed, as I want to keep them for myself at the moment. And fair enough. It's not easy to share this stuff because of the collective, ridicule and judgment that people come by. You're a brave woman. You're an amazing woman.
Thank you.
You're incredible. And I look forward
Thanks.
to meeting you in the flesh at
Yeah.
Cardwell in Queensland.
Yeah,
August.
me too. Thanks for
gonna
having
be
me on your show. It's been really great. Yeah.
Thank you for coming on the show. Thanks to everyone that's been participating in the chat. Shirley says, so amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
You are amazing. Thanks for all your questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to them. I just had to let Rowan just share her story because it's so extensive. And Vladdy says thank you. He had lots of questions. Hope we answered some of your questions, Dying One. Big love to all of you, and I'll catch you again next time. Bye for now.
Bye.